going to float away. But let's get things started. Welcome, everyone, to another Sunday night edition of Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. And I'm pre-warning everybody that I have got a major thunderstorm rolling through where I am at this library. So during the reading, during the chapters tonight, you may hear loud thunder crashes. I might see some lightning. And this is going to be fun. I'm kind of excited by this. We've got the next 4 chapters from the current Tom Swift book that we're reading, chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8. Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. If you get a chance, please like and subscribe. And I appreciate it. I do indeed. And I hope everyone's having a good Sunday evening or whenever you're getting a chance to watch this. To everybody who's watching and to the person, I just got an email from Billy who's watching, sitting back, relaxing. And everybody there, hello and welcome. But we are going to get started with the book. And I'll tell you, it's been a good read so far. And I think we should just jump right into it because, like I said, with the way the weather is outside this library I work in, I'm reading in, we might lose power. That could be intriguing. Losing power while doing the show. Only in Minnesota. Well, no, not really. Well, let's get started. The next 4 chapters, 5, 6, 7, and 8, of Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. Chapter 5. Sorry. Secret Cache. As the trooper's flashlight stabbed through the cellar gloom at the spot where Bud had disappeared, there came a loud splash. The light showed a round circle in the floor, rimmed by a low circle of brickwork. "What's the hole?" the trooper snapped at the owner. "What's it look like?" the elderly man snapped back. "It's an old well." "A well?" the trooper exclaimed as he rushed to the spot. "And not even covered? What are you trying to do, kill people?" The old man sniffed. "It used to be covered, but the lid's gone. Didn't expect to have a bunch of nosy fellas poking around down here." The state trooper muttered angrily under his breath as he shone the flashlight into the well shaft. Bud was splashing around below, soaked and chagrined by the accident. "Give me a hand," he called up. The trooper reached down, but was barely able to touch Bud's fingertips. To make matters worse, the sides of the well were slippery with moss. "Get a rope," the trooper ordered the old man. "Ain't got one." The policeman reddened and stood up at his full 6'2". "Look, mister, what's your name?" The elderly man shrank back as if suspecting the trooper's patience might have been tried too far. "Ben Smith," he muttered. "Okay, Mr. Smith. You get a rope or something else to help pull this boy out, and fast." Ben Smith gulped on his chewing tobacco and hurried off. A minute or so later, he returned with a length of clothesline. The trooper lowered it into the well, and Bud was soon climbing out, looking like a drenched rat. "Sorry, son," Smith said apologetically. "I should have warned you." Bud chuckled good-naturedly. "It's all right," he said. "It was my own fault for not watching where I was going. Besides, you can't blame an American for not liking the idea of having his home searched." The old man chuckled too and flashed a wary eye at the trooper. "I'll go get you a towel to dry off with," he told Bud. Meanwhile, Tom was investigating a house down the road with another state trooper. The owner, a paunchy, unshaven bachelor named Pete Laddie, and his 17-year-old nephew accompanied them to the basement. A naked light bulb hanging from the ceiling revealed an ancient furnace and an accumulation of junk. Most of it was covered with dust, but Tom noticed a large packing crate that looked as if it had been freshly moved. He walked over and began to shove the heavy box aside. "What are you doing?" Laddie asked gruffly. "I want to look underneath," Tom replied. A second later, his eyes widened as he saw a trap door, evidently leading to a sub-cellar. Tom beckoned his partner over and showed the discovery. "Where does this lead to?" the trooper asked, turning back to Laddie. "Just a little storage area," the owner replied with a shrug. "I didn't think it was worth mentioning." "You better not go down there," he added hastily. "The steps ain't safe." "Just the same, we'll take a look," the trooper said. "Then do it at your own risk," Laddie snapped. The officer pulled up the trap door and Tom shone a light down. The shallow dirt-walled room below was about 6 feet square. On the floor at the foot of the rickety old ladder lay a large bundle wrapped in tarpaulin. Tom descended the ladder cautiously and then opened the tarpaulin to see what was inside. The contents made him gasp. A large, well-oiled collection of rifles and pistols. Looking up, Tom saw both the trooper and Laddie peering down at him. The trooper open-mouthed with surprise, Laddie scowling nervously. "Don't touch 'em," Laddie warned. "Some of them are loaded. I keep 'em hidden for safety. But sometimes my nephew Fred here and I have target practice." Just then, Tom's keen eye spotted a slip of paper tucked among the guns. He pulled it out. His heart gave a leap of excitement as he saw 2 words written on the paper. Samson Narco. Hiding his amazement, Tom read the name loud and added cautiously, "What's this? The make of one of your guns?" Yeah, that's right," said the man replied. Without comment, Tom climbed out of the sub-cellar. As he bent down to drop the trap door, Tom flashed the officer a signal. Instantly, the trooper grabbed Laddie. "Hey, what's the rough stuff?" the prisoner exclaimed. Then, as he realized the officer was about to handcuff him, the man's face turned pasty white. He pulled free from the trooper's grasp and bolted towards the stairway. His nephew stood as if paralyzed at the sudden turn of events. Laddie attempted flight of stairs was hopeless. Tom quickly brought him down with a flying tackle. Later, after Laddie had been manacled, Tom helped him up. "In case you didn't know," the young inventor said coldly, "your friend Narco is in jail, so you might as well talk. What's the pitch?" Laddie was trembling and still pale. I didn't know that there'd be any trouble with the cops, or I never would have done it," he quavered. "Narco offered me some dough to hide the guns. I needed money, so I took him up. That's all there is to it." "How long have you known this Narco?" Tom asked. "I met him a few days ago in a restaurant. Believe me, I never laid eyes on him before. And I wish I never had," Laddie added bitterly. The man's story rang of truth. "All right, officer, let's take him in." To the still astonished Fred, he added, "We're sorry about this." 2 hours later, Tom and Bud sat in Chief Slatter's office at Shopton Police Headquarters. Captain Rock and the Shopton Fire Chief were also on hand. "We've had troopers, detectives, fire inspectors swarming all over Laddie's place," Captain Rock reported. "They examined his house, garage, and sheds out back, and every inch of the grounds, but there's no indication of a place where a bomb might have been planted to cause an underground explosion in Shopton." The chief nodded confirmation, so that clue peters out, he said. With the waning of daylight, the other groups had finally abandoned their search of the Shopton area without turning up any information. "I'll notify the FBI immediately," Chief Slatter said. Nevertheless, he promised that his men would continue their efforts the next day. "Even if we find nothing, the arms cache was worth all the trouble," Slatter added. "The country owes you a vote of thanks, Tom. bunch of enemy agents could have hurt a lot of people with an arsenal like that. That's for sure, Captain Rock agreed. It was a good day's haul, Tom. The two boys drove back to Swift home, had a quick shower. Bud offered to clean clothes for Tom. Then they sat down to enjoy a warmed up but tasty supper served by Sandy and Mrs. Swift. As they ate, the boys listened to music on the radio, interspersed with eager questions from Sandy about the bomb search. Suddenly, the radio announcer broke in. We interrupt this broadcast to bring you an important news bulletin. Chapter 6. Brugerian Coup. Tom, Sandy, and Bud listened to the radio announcer continued. Reports are just in say that Brugeria has been taken over by rebel group. Military aid to support the rebel group is pouring in from Moravia, Brugeria's powerful province in the north. The Brugerian Prime Minister, his cabinet, all loyal administrative personnel have fled or been arrested. Worried U.S. State Department officials admit that they are surprised that the surprise coup poses a new and dangerous threat to the free world security. Further news reports will be broadcast as soon as they reach the station, the announcer ended. For a moment, Tom and Bud were too stunned to speak. Sandy was wide-eyed with the realization that the news spelled trouble for Swift Enterprises and all America. Looks as though the CIA man who briefed us wasn't kidding, eh, Skipper? Bud muttered at last. It came sooner than he expected, Tom added. Jumping up from the table, Tom switched off the radio and hurried to the hall phone. In a few moments, he managed to get a long-distance call through to Wes Norris of the FBI. Is the news on the Brugerian coup as bad as it sounds, Wes? Tom inquired. Worse. That rebel bunch really has it in for us, as you know, Tom, Norris replied. They envy America and they'll move heaven and earth to steal our scientific secrets. This could touch off a whole epidemic of sabotage and other spy activity. Tom clenched his jaw grimly. Then he asked the FBI man his opinion about the discovery of the secret arms cache in Pete Laddie's basement. Norris admitted he was puzzled. It doesn't add up, Tom, the FBI agent said thoughtfully. If our enemies were planning to destroy Shopton by earthquake, why would anyone be needing a gun? I can't figure it out myself, Wes. Unless they were planning to raid and loot Enterprises after the place was thrown into disorder, Tom deduced. What about Narco himself? Has he talked yet? Norris replied that although he has not had interviewed Narco himself, FBI agents who had grilled the spy had failed to elicit any information. Here's something else, though, you might find of interest, Norris went on. We now have reports that at the time of the Harkness and Medfield disasters, seismographs recorded simultaneous earthquakes off the coast of Alaska near the Aleutian Chain. Tremors were also felt off the southwest coast of South America. A new factor to consider. Tom frowned in puzzlement as he hung up the phone after completing his talk with the FBI man. Tom had repeated the conversation to his companions. Bud said, "Do you mean the H-bomb idea goes out the window?" Tom shrugged. Wes says they found no evidence to support the theory of man-produced underground blasts. It just doesn't jive with those remote tremors. They'd be too much of a coincidence happening at the same time. Then the quakes at Harkness and Medfield were real earthquakes, Sandy put in. Looks that way, Tom admitted. Those other tremors Wes mentioned followed a natural circum-Pacific belt, which is well known to seismologists. I'm no expert, but perhaps they could have set off a chain of reactions below the Earth's crust, which triggered the two quakes in this part of the country. In that case, the young inventor reflected, it was not only a freak of nature that the farmer and the nose cone factories had been wrecked by the shock. But in spite of the seismographic clues, Tom was not entirely convinced. A nagging doubt still buzzed in the back of his mind. The next morning, Tom hurried off to his private glass-walled laboratory enterprises, eager to continue work on the container or robot body for the brain from space. Tom frowned as he studied the rough sketch he had drawn in his office the afternoon before. "This sets up full of bugs," he muttered. Nevertheless, Tom decided the basic idea was sound. Grabbing a pencil and slide rule, he began to dash off page after page of diagrams and equations. "Chow down," boomed a foggy voice. Chow Winkler, wearing a white chef's hat, wheeled a lunch cart into the lab. "Oh, thanks." Tom scarcely looked up from his work as the cook set out appetizing meal of Texas hash, milk, deep dish apple pie on the bench beside the young inventor. Grumbling under his breath, Chow sauntered out. Tom went on working intently between mouthfuls. In another hour, he finished a set of pilot drawings. Then he called Hank Sterling and Arvid Hansen and asked them to come to the laboratory. They listened with keen interest as Tom explained his latest creation. "No telling if it will work when the energy arrives from space," Tom said, "but I think everything tracks okay. Hank, get these plans blueprinted and assigned to the electronics group to the project. You better handle the hardware yourself." "Right." Tom rolled up the sketches. "And Arv," Tom went on, "I'd like a scale model made to guide them on the assembly. How soon can you have it?" Hansen promised the model for some time next day, and the two men hurried off. As usual, Arv proved slightly better than his word. The expert model maker was devoted to his craft and as apt to forget the clock as Tom himself when absorbed with new projects. By working in his shop long after closing hours, Tom had a desk-sized model of the space brain robot ready for Tom's inspection when the inventor arrived at the plant early the following morning. "Wonderful, Arv," Tom approved. "Every time I see one of your models of a new invention, I'm sure it will work." Hansen grinned, pleased at the compliment. Tom hopped into a Jeep and sped across the plant grounds to deliver the model to Hank Sterling and his project crew. Work was already well along the electronic sub-assemblies, and the strange-looking body was taking shape. That afternoon, Ames and Dilling returned from Washington. The report they gave to Tom bore out his hunch that the rebel Brugerian scientists might well be able to divert the space energy. The next day was Friday. Tom was hoping, although none too optimistically, that the container might be completed before the weekend. To his delight, an Enterprise pickup truck arrived outside the laboratory later that afternoon, and Hank rolled the odd-looking device inside. "Hey, Buster," Tom greeted it. "Is this your daddy?" Hank chuckled. "Don't look at me like that. It claims you're its daddy, but hanged if I can see much resemblance. Think it'll live?" "If not," Hank replied half-jokingly, "the boys who worked on it will sure be disappointed." "No kidding, Skipper. That's quite a gadget you dreamed up." The device stood about shoulder-high with a star-shaped head, one point of which could be open. The head would contain the actual brain energy, the upper body cylinder in shape, and the gleaming chrome housed the output units through which the brain would react and also control. Antennas projecting out from either side gave the look of arms. Its waist was girdled with a ring of replicatron radiators for exerting a repulsion force when it wanted to move by repelling itself from nearby objects. Below the repelletrons was an hourglass-shaped power unit housing a solar-charged battery. The power unit, in turn, was mounted on a pancake-shaped transportation unit. This unit was equipped with both casters and a short caterpillar crawler arrangement for the contrivance to get about over obstacles. Inside was gyro stabilizer to keep the whole device upright. Tom felt a glow of pride and eager impatience as he inspected the device. If it worked as he hoped, the odd creature might one day provide Earth scientists with a priceless store of information about intelligent life on planet X. Bud and Chow entered the laboratory soon after Hank Sterling had left, found Tom still engrossed in his thoughts. "Wow, is that your spaceman?" Bud inquired. Tom nodded, then grinned at his caller's gasping expressions. Each was trying to imagine how the thing would look inside. "Sure is an odd-looking buckaroo," Chow commented when Tom finished explaining how it was supposed to work. On a sudden impulse, the old cowpoke took off his 10-gallon hat and plumped it right on the creature. Then he removed his polka dot red bandana, knotted it like a handkerchief just below the star head. Tom laughed heartily as Bud howled, "Ride him, spaceman!" Tom was eager to notify his mysterious space friends that the container was now ready to receive the brain energy. Bud went with him by jeep to the Space Communications Laboratory. Chow, however, stayed behind and stared in fascination at the odd-looking robot creature. The stout cook walked back and forth, eyeing the thing suspiciously from every angle. "Wonder what the critter eats," he muttered. Feeling his shirt pocket, Chow brought out a wad of his favorite bubblegum. Should he or should he not? Shucks, won't hurt to try, the old Texan decided. Chow unlocked the hinge point at the star head and popped the gum inside. He was somewhat disappointed when nothing happened. Feeling a trifle foolish, Chow finally removed his hat and bandana from the creature and stumped off. Meanwhile, in the Space Communications Laboratory, Tom was pounding out a message on the keyboard electronic brain. Tom had invented this device for automatically coding and decoding messages between the Swifts and their space friends. It was connected to a powerful transmitting and receiving apparatus, served by several huge radio antenna mounted on top of a communications building. Bud looked as Tom signaled on. "Tom Swift to space friends. Container for her energy is now ready. Should it be placed outdoors?" Stirred by worrisome afterthought, Tom added, "Messages may be intercepted by enemies who wish to steal the energy. Suggest you use flight path to land exactly 2 miles west of first contact with us." "By first contact, you mean when that black missile landed at Enterprises?" Bud asked. Tom nodded. At that time, he reminded Bud, the Brugerians and their conquerors had not yet learned of the Swift's communication from another planet. Hence, they would have no idea where the site referred to, which would hamper any plans to kidnap this brain energy. "I get it," Bud said. "Smart idea, pal." Tensely, the two boys waited for a reply from outer space. Chapter 7. A Wall of Water. Minutes went by before the signal bell rang on the electronic brain. Both Tom and Bud rushed over to the machine, and it began to spell out the incoming message on tape. "Energy will come to the spot you suggested. We can control flight course, but while the energy is on Earth, you will be in charge. We will have no control for 21 days. Then we will recall the energy to bring us impressions and data of your world." The two boys stared at each other excitedly as the transmission ended. "Wow," Bud murmured. "If Planet X is a peaceful place, Old Thinkbox is for sure in a jolt here on Earth. Tom grinned fleetingly at the reference to Chow's nickname for the robot creature. Then he became serious, knowing that Bud's words were all too true. The space visitors might also take back impressions of the suffering and warlike threats that some Earth countries inflict on one another. Maybe one day, Tom reflected, it would be different. In the meantime, the young inventor realized that he had an awesome responsibility. He must not only make the best use of the brain energy during its stay on Earth, but also keep it from falling into the hands of the treacherous Brugerian plotters. Tom's thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the sound of girls' voices. Sandy and Phil were standing in the doorway of the Space Communications Laboratory. "Talk about deep thinkers," Sandy said teasingly. "Goodness, we had no idea we'd be interrupting a session of a brain trust," Phil added with a mysterious sparkle in her brown eyes. "Maybe we should go get away again, Sandy." "Hey, hold it, you two," Bud exclaimed. "What do you think, Tom? Are these the visitors we've been expecting from outer space?" "Well, I like that," Sandy pouted. "Do we look like a couple of little green people?" Tom chuckled and seized the opportunity to do a little teasing on his own. "I think it's just your pointed heads that fooled us, sis." Then the two girls broke down in laughter, and he added, "Why the unexpected visit?" Sandy and Phil explained that they had come to invite the boys on a picnic cruise on Lake Carlope next day. "And while we're here, since it's practically quitting time anyway," Sandy went on, her blue eyes twinkling, "we might even let you drive us someplace for dinner." Guess they've tapped us, Bud," Tom said with a grin. "Okay, it's a deal. But first we have something to show you." He took the girls to the laboratory to show them the robot creature. "It's marvelous," Sandy exclaimed, and Phil agreed. Early the next morning, Bud called for Tom and Sandy in his tomato red convertible. Then they stopped at Newton's house to pick up Phil. Each girl had packed a picnic basket for the day's sail. "Huh. Looks as though that we're going to be well fed," Bud commented jokingly. "What's on the menu, girls?" "Chicken and ham sandwiches," Sandy began. "Pickles, olives, hard-boiled eggs, potato salad," Phil went on. "Chocolate cake, milk," Sandy added to the list. "Stop! You have us hungry as bears already," Tom warned. "Right," Bud agreed. "Come on, let's get this cruise underway." The two couples drove to Shopton Yacht Club dock on Lake Carlope. There they boarded the Sunspot, a beautiful 30-foot sailing ketch with an auxiliary engine which Mr. Swift and Mr. Newton had purchased for a frequent promised, yet not yet realized joint family vacation. The craft was equipped with twin Gravitrex stabilizers mounted on one of each sides of the hull. These gave it amazing smoothness even when plowing through rough seas. They were adaptations of a device Tom had invented for his space kite and the cosmic sailor. "Oh, what a gorgeous day for a sail," Phil said, aglow with enthusiasm. The sky was cloudless blue. Under a hot summer sun, a brisk breeze was ruffling the lake into tiny whitecaps. The two couples cast off eagerly and were soon scuttling out across the water under full sail. Tom and Bud wore swimming trunks under their slacks. Unfortunately, the girls had forgotten to bring their suits. When the Sunspot reached the center of the lake, the boys hoved and stripped down to their trunks and dived overboard. Meanwhile, the girls sunbathed on the deck. Soon it was time for picnic lunch, and all four ate with healthy young appetites. "Japers," Sandy whispered to Phil with a giggle. "After this feast like this, we'll have to go on a diet." "Don't say that," Phil warned, "or Tom and Bud will use that as an excuse never to take us out again." She broke off with a sudden gasp. "What's wrong?" Tom asked. Breathless with a fright, Phil pointed off to starboard. The others paled. An enormous wave was sweeping across the lake straight towards the catch. Jumping jets, Bud gulped. It's like a tidal wave. The boat was already rocking under the swells that preceded the oncoming huge breaker. Quick, Tom yelled. Grab life jackets while I start the engine. All the four leaped into action. Every instant, the terrifying wave rushed closer. By now, it was a 12-foot wall of water. Tom and the others had just put on their jackets, and the engine barely gunned to life when disaster struck. The mammoth wave swept up the sunspot and heeled it far over into the trough like a toy bark. The next instant, the cataract of water poured over the deck with stunning force. We're going under, Phil screamed. All four were swept overboard in the maelstrom. Under the smashing impact of the water, the ketch's main mast bent and groaned. A moment later came a crack like a gunshot. A moment, the mast broke off, hung teetering by shreds, then toppled into the water. As it fell, the mast struck Sandy with a grazing blow on the head. Sandy! Bud cried fearfully as he struggled in swirling torrents. Calling on every ounce of strength, he swam with powerful strokes towards the girl. Sandy was dazed and limp. Bud's husky arms circled around her tightly. Then he began to fight his way towards shore. Tom and Phil, each struggling in the turbulent water, could only breathe a prayer of thanks as they watched the rescue. As the huge wave raced towards shoreward, the lake water suddenly became calmer in the wake. Tom was able to assist Phil, and Sandy by now had recovered her faculties. The sunspot had capsized, but they could still be seen. It could still be seen afloat some distance away. Rather than swim to it, they clung to a hunk of the hope, clung in hope that the rescue boat would arrive. The four decided to continue on towards shore. They knew that the aftermath of the tidal wave would keep all the shore facilities in an uproar for hours to come. As they neared the beach, the young people could see other overturned craft and heads bobbing in the water. A few daring persons finally began putting out in motorboats and rowboats to pick up survivors. 100 yards from shore, one of the boats took Tom's group ashore. Minutes later, they were scrambling out onto the dock. Are you all right, Sandy? Bud asked, with his arms still around her. I think so, she gasped weakly, but I must have swallowed half the lake. Take it easy, sis, Tom added as Sandy swayed and shuddered from the shock of her recent ordeal. Gently, he made Sandy lie down and pillowed her head in a fold of tarpaulin provided by a sympathetic boatman. Phil, though wan and white-faced, was in somewhat better shape. Tom, we must get these girls home as soon as possible, Bud declared. This, however, was not an easily accomplished thing. The tidal wave had caused devastation along the entire shorefront. Many docks had been wrecked, boats splintered like matchsticks, and buildings along the water smashed. When Tom's group reached Bud's convertible, parked near the yacht club pier, they found the car had completely waterlogged. Its electrical system not even faint sputter or spark. Oh, fine, Bud groaned. The crowning touch. Eventually, ambulances and private cars began to arrive to transport the injured. Tom, Bud, and the two girls were given a lift to the Swift home, where Sandy and Phil were immediately put to bed by worried Mrs. Swift. Downstairs, Tom watched on a TV set. The mobile camera crew from the local station was scanning the water and interviewing witnesses of the disaster. To the two boys, the most interesting note came in the statement by the announcer that the very slight earth tremor had been felt in Shopton. But no damage occurred except along the waterfront, the announcer exclaimed. Tom gave a snort of anger, jumped up from his chair, and began pacing about like the living room. Bud, I feel sure that the wall of water was caused by a minor earthquake, the young inventor declared. What's more, I'll bet it was man made. Bud stared at his friend, appalled by it, but feeling a hot surge of anger. If you're right, if you're right, pal, it's the most fiendish sabotage I've ever heard of. Think of all the lives that were endangered. Tom nodded grimly. I am thinking. The boys jerked around and looked at the TV set again, as the studio announcer's voice suddenly broke into the telecast. Flash! A severe quake has occurred in the headquarters of the American Archives Foundation, 100 miles from Shopton. The Foundation's building, containing many priceless government and scientific documents, was badly damaged, and an underground microfilm vault was utterly destroyed. Apparently, this quake was part of the tremor felt here in Shopton. Within minutes, the Swift's home telephone began jangling constantly. Some calls were from friends, others from strangers. Many calls were routed through the enterprise switchboard. One was from Dan Perkins of the Shopton Bulletin. What about it, Tom? The editor demanded. I guess you know by now that the public's aroused in a state of near panic over all these quakes. What they all want to know is this. Are you, Tom Swift, going to find a way to stop this destruction? Tom's jaw jutted out angrily. Yes, I am, he snapped, and you can quote me on that. Chapter 8. The suspect talks. The next morning, Tom was up at the crack of dawn, grimly determined to find an answer to the earthquake menace. He ate a hasty breakfast and drove to his private laboratory at Enterprise. He instructed the switchboard operator to shut off all incoming calls, then plunged into a study of the mystifying problem. Earthquake activity, Tom knew, tends to occur in circular patterns, like bands around the Earth. For instance, the Circum-Pacific Belt and another belt extending eastward from the Mediterranean through Asia and on into the East Indies. Often these quake lines are visible as breaks or ruptures along the ground surface called fault traces. No doubt, Tom thought, there were many more uncharted ones. Could an enemy scientist be making use of these earth faults to produce man-made quakes? Tom mulled over this disturbing idea. How would I tackle the job myself if I had to undertake such a project for national defense? The young inventor mused. He felt a growing tense sense of excitement as an idea began to take shape in his mind. What about an artificial shock wave? An hour later, Bud Barkley walked into the laboratory and found Tom hunched over a jumbled pile of reference books on his workbench. What cooks, Skipper? Bud asked. Tom looked up, his blue eyes blazing. Bud, I think I may have the answer. Tom got up from the stool and paced about the laboratory. Suppose the Perusian rebel scientists have invented some sort of shockwave producer, a device for sending vibrations through the Earth's crust or the mantle underneath. Okay, I suppose they have, Bud replied. Tom snatched up a piece of chalk and made some quick diagrams on a blackboard. Just this, pal. Let's say that they set up 2 or 3 stations around the world for sending out such waves in definite direction. Wherever the wave crosses an earth fault or another wave, boom, an earthquake. Bud stared. No kidding. Is this how the rats triggered off all those quakes? It must be, Tom declared. It's the only possible explanation. Good night, Bud gasped weakly. What a weapon. Just push a button every so often and you could blow up another country bit by bit. and no one could ever prove who was behind the attack. Enough to make every American shiver if he knew. What can we do about it? Bud asked. Tom resumed his worried pacing. I'll have to invent a shockwave deflector, Bud. It must be done in a hurry, too. Our enemy may start to destroy American cities as well as vital defense plans. Immediately, Tom put an urgent call to an eminent scientist in Washington who was a member of the National Research Council. Quickly, he outlined a plan. Tom, I'll talk to the presidential special science advisor at once, the man promised. I'll try to set up a meeting for 10 o'clock tomorrow morning at Enterprises. Feeling relieved, Tom left the plant with Bud. The two boys drove off to attend church with Mrs. Swift and Sandy. Then, after a Sunday midday meal, Tom returned to the laboratory to work on the ideas for a shockwave deflector. Bud and Sandy, meanwhile, drove to the Shopton Yacht Club to inspect the damage to the sunspot. Tom had arranged with the salvage crew to tow the disabled ketch back to the slip. Monday morning, a sleek Air Force jet transport touched down at Swift Enterprises. Aboard were a group of top government scientists. Tom and Bud greeted them as they disembarked on the runway, then drove them to a conference room in the Enterprise's main building. I say your theory is right, Tom, about the quakes being produced by an artificial shockwave, said Burnt Allegren, a tall, hawk-faced man with a shock of red hair. He was a member of the Defense Department's Advanced Research Projects Agency. But how do we stop them? I believe they can be damped out by opposing waves, Tom replied. This is assuming that I can design the right sort of equipment to do the job. And also that we can set up an early warning system to alert us of the enemy's shock waves in time. The young inventor sketched out the sort of shockwave deflector which he had in mind. The government experts were very much impressed. In the session that followed, the visiting scientists contributed many tips and suggestions. Tom noted down them gratefully. After a thorough discussion, it was agreed that the Defense Department would set up detectors at 50 checkpoints around the country. Tom would choose the exact spots. Detection data from the checkpoints would be fed into an electronic computer. The computer would establish the pattern, if any, of incoming enemy shockwaves. Dr. Greg Mills, a seismologist from the Bureau of Mines, agreed to take on the job of setting up the checkpoints. Thanks for your prompt cooperation, Tom said, smiling gratefully as the meeting broke up. We should thank you, Tom, for coming up with a great plan to cope with this fiendish threat, Allegren replied. The others agreed heartily. Shortly after lunch, Tom was hard at work in his laboratory when the telephone rang. It was Chief Slatter from Shopton Police at the headquarters. You better get over here fast, Tom, Slatter said. Samson Narco is ready to talk. Tom needed no urging. Right, Chief. As he drove to Shopton, Tom wondered what the Brugerian agent would reveal. Was it possible that he might tip off the whole secret behind the destructive man-made earthquakes? Chief Slatter was waiting in his office. Narco showed signs of cracking this morning, Slater told Tom. So I notified Central Intelligence Agency. They're flying a man up here. In fact, he should be here by now. Narco won't talk until he arrives. How come? Tom asked. Narco wants a bargain, Slatter explained. If the government will promise to deport him at once without trial, he'll spill what he knows. Tom whistled. I sure wouldn't want to be in his shoes when he gets back to Brugeria. His bosses aren't stupid. They'll know he made off a good deal to get off scot-free. Just then a taxi from the airport pulled up outside the police headquarters, and the CIA official was ushered into Slatter's office. He proved to be John Thurston. Narco's waiting in his cell, Slatter said, exchanging handshakes. Let's hope he hasn't changed his mind. The Brugerian spy rose from his cot as the turnkey unlocked the cell door. "You're from Washington, eh?" Narco said to Thurston. "Very well. I presume the police have told you my offer. Is it a bargain?" Thurston was poker-faced. "You know the penalty for spying," he snapped. "In your own country, it would mean death. Why should we let you off?" Narco's calmness evaporated. Beads of sweat burst out over his head. "I have done no harm, and I know little or nothing of my superior's plans," the spy said excitedly. "Why should I lie to you with my life at stake? After all, I am only an insignificant agent. But one important thing I do know, and this I will reveal if you promise to deport me at once." Thurston's eyed him coldly. "Very well," the CIA man decided. "You have my word." Narco sat down on his cot, breathing heavily. Then he looked up at the three Americans. "Your nation's capital, Washington, D.C., is going to be blown up," said the Brugerian asserted. His words struck like a bombshell. Chief Slatter and John Thurston stared at Narco in open-mouthed astonishment. Then Slatter scowled. "What a preposterous story. I suppose they're going to fly a plane over and drop a bomb just like that." He snapped his fingers. Thurston was also inclined to doubt Narco's story. "Any such bold move by the Brugerians," he declared, "would mount to an act of war." "It's the truth," Narco shouted. "And don't forget, you made your promise." Tom did not share Chief Slatter's and Thurston's skepticism. Narco's words had chilled him with dismay. He called the others two aside and gave them a quick whispered briefing on a theory he had discussed with the government scientists, asking them to keep it confidential. If the Brugerians indeed had means of producing artificial shock waves, Tom pointed out that they could easily destroy Washington without the slightest risk to themselves. Both Thurston and Chief Slatter were alarmed. Turning back to Narco, they grilled him for clues, but it seemed obvious that the Brugerian was telling all he knew, or at any rate, all he intended to reveal. "We're wasting our time," Thurston said. Finally, with a look of disgust, "But I made a promise in the name of the U.S. government, and the promise will be kept." Turning to Chief Slatter, the CIA man added, "Turn him over to the FBI and have them take him to New York, and I'll arrange for a seat on a first plane to Brugeria." Tom drove back thoughtfully to the Enterprise. Bud was waiting in his laboratory with news. "Your dad went from Washington to Faring Island and has gone up to your space outpost," Bud reported. "He has to do some experiments for the government project he's working on." The outpost was a space station with Tom Swift Jr. had built 22,300 miles above the Earth. It was a production factory for his famous solar batteries, and also an immense valuable setup for space research and exploration. "I think I'll radio Dad and let him know what's going on," Tom decided. "He may have some good suggestions. He usually does." Tom warmed up his private transmitter receiver and beamed out a coded call through the automatic scrambler. Seconds later, the loudspeaker crackled in response. But just as the outpost operator's voice came through, the radio set exploded in Tom's face. And that is chapters 5, 6, 7, and 8 of Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. Hope you liked those last 4 chapters. I'm getting curious to see exactly how they plan on supposedly destroying the city. And makes me kind of curious too, the space brain that's supposed to be transported. Makes you wonder what it's going to be like being on the planet. It'll be interesting. Stay tuned, and keep your Sundays free for continuing the chapters, Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. With everything, too, I'd like to remind you also, like and subscribe. Really appreciate it. It always helps the algorithm a little bit more when you guys like and subscribe. I am Joel K. This is Accessibly Live, the book club reading room, the sister show to our Thursday night show, the Conversation Station. And I appreciate, I can't talk today, guys. Rented lips. Blah. I appreciate everybody who's been tuning in the last few weeks, last couple years, since we started doing this. And we are going to continue doing it until I get really tired, and I don't get tired of reading. I hope you don't either. Before we go, like I do on the Thursday night show, I have a final quote for the night. And this one from a great inventor. The famous saying, when one door closes, another door opens, is actually a famous quote by Alexander Graham Bell. The quote ends with, "But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the ones which open for us." The famous saying, when one door closes, another door opens, is actually a famous quote by Alexander Graham Bell. The quote ends with, "But we often look so long and so regretfully upon the closed door that we do not see the ones which open for us." It's a good point. Sometimes we lose a job, we lose someone that we cared about, and we kind of forget that in the process of either grieving or being hurt by the loss of a job. Sometimes big opportunities are coming when you least expect it. And sometimes you just got to look around and keep your eyes peeled on what's available and what might be just around the corner. Give it a shot. We're going to get out of here. This is Accessibly Live, the book club reading room. Every single Sunday night live here on Twitch and also on YouTube. And I appreciate everybody who stops in. Be well, be safe, be kind. Time to always remember, put your hand out once in a while to somebody who cares or needs help. Sometimes we need to look towards each other. All the craziest going on out there in the world, we need to stand with each other and not fight. Take care, you guys. We'll see you all next Thursday, or this coming Thursday, for Accessibly Live, the Conversation Station. And we'll see you next Sunday for chapters 9, 10, 11, and 12 of Tom Swift and the Visitor from Planet X. Take care, you guys. Bye-bye now.